It's time to go to the atomic level. It's time to go.
Welcome back to the Atomic Level, the show where we decode the matters of wealth one insightful conversation at a time so that you can grow and protect your net worth and, most importantly, your net happiness. I'm Chris Snook, and today I couldn't be more excited because we're going to really talk about that net happiness part as well as the net worth with my friend and coach, Dionna Chambers. Dionna, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Me too. So, those who know me, starting with my wife and then my good friends, know that I am a tough nut to crack, but I'm also someone who is constantly analyzing myself. And for all my strengths, I have equally as many liabilities. I know what some of them are. And like most people, I have blind spots that I don't know because I can't see what I can't see. All that being said, there's been a tremendous effort over my 25 plus years of personal development to not only work on the soft skills and my own understanding, but also the hard skills that make you money, that build businesses and do that. And because of that, I'm a pain in the ass when it comes to like coaches and therapists and things like that, because I do know what I know, and I know a lot of techniques, and I read most of the books, and sometimes I've read more books. And so I kind of come in with this, like, I want to be impressed. I want to be, I want to see something new. I want someone to do something to make me look at something I wasn't ready to look at, but I also kind of have this natural skepticism. And you and I had the chance to serendipitously meet, I think, over a year or so ago. And I was heading down to a meeting or something in Southern California. We got the chance to do kind of a session in person. And I don't remember exactly when it was. It might have been inside of a Target. Because we met for a coffee or something because it just happened to be convenient. And I kind of came in going, man, should I cancel this? Because you had been positioned to me as like the Wendy Rhoades of all things current date and in the world of AI and all this stuff with everything happening. I was like, well, that's interesting. I love billions. If there's a real life version of that, I want to meet her and see what she can do to fix, what's broken in some of my approach. I didn't expect it to happen. And I say all that for the listener because we're having this conversation today because I've not only was impressed, but I actually, with my guard up, realized that you actually really knew what you were doing. And it was something that was obviously part innate and then well-trained. So as that backdrop, I want to tell everybody listening to this, I think you're going to get tremendous value from this conversation. I'm looking to hear what you have to say about this current AI psychosis that has been talked about in the last week or so, especially by a lot of peers on YouTube, a lot of peers on Substack that are in the know, that are excited, but also feeling the overwhelm, feeling the FOMO, feeling the anxiety. And then as that permeates out into society, what people that may not have felt that yet can do to kind of prepare themselves for it when it comes, move through it when it comes, and also just reset our understanding of what it means to be human. So that's what we're going to talk about with Dionna today. Welcome to the show. I'm going to let you have the opening thought, and I'm just going to react from there.
Well, I love how you positioned this conversation because I do believe AI psychosis is a real thing. I can feel the edge for myself when I'm using AI in the workplace for my business, but also when I'm personally using AI as a thought partner. And I think the biggest thing that I can say, as cliche as it will sound, is that returning back to the body, returning back to breath, not using technology is actually my simple answer to start this conversation, because that's our North Star, right? Our breath, our body, that's what will tell us what's happening at all times, or this somatic guidance. And when we use AI and override that, that's when we start to, again, edge on that psychosis that we're hearing a lot about recently.
And so a couple of things related to that part, the type A personality, which tends to be the people that are attracted into finance or in business or like all those things. There's obviously been, in recent time, more of a movement around meditation and around all these things. And I'm saying it the way I'm saying it because there's a piece of me that was kind of like, yeah, whatever, right? Like, and not because I'm not interested in what it could bring, but because of a lot of the way that that's been packaged or who may have been packaging it. And yet there's obviously a lot of really well-respected people who have said that that's been one of the secrets. And this is before we hit, March of 2023 and the chat GPT kind of moment, right, that has triggered everything now, and then especially the last little bit of time. When you say return to breath, let's talk about it through the lens of why that matters and what does it represent?
I think returning back to breath, I'm going to actually compare it to being in the womb. The safest we've ever been was in the womb, right? Literally, we didn't have to pay mortgage, rent. We didn't have to worry about food. We didn't have to worry about anything. We were literally we were living, we were being created. And it's sort of that 0 point base that I'm comparing it to. Whereas like right now, our version of the womb is breath within our own body. It's silence and it's stillness. And I know that can sound like an oversimplification given what's happening right now. But I do believe even if it's 5 minutes of conscious breath and mindfulness or 15 minutes and literally even shutting things off, it's like you return back to that normal rhythm that your body's craving in times like this when we're overstimulated and we're in these dopamine highs, right, from AI, which again, AI is a beautiful tool. But when it overrides your ability to listen to your body, that's when you have a problem. So for me, that returning to the womb is shutting things off and being within myself. I did it this morning, actually. I forced myself to because I can feel that. If I'm reaching for my phone to start chatting with Claude, there's a problem. That's a fundamental issue because I'm overriding my own intuition. So I think, again, I'm not telling people that are listening to like, yes, go do a Vipassana and, vow to silence for 7 days. But maybe that version is mindful breathing 5 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, 2 times a day. Because again, that reset, that clarity, that oxygen, it really does help you just, I think, organize your thoughts in a more conscious way so that when you're making decisions, it's rooted and it's not reactive because you just spent an hour moving through it on AI. You know what I mean? There's a big difference.
Yeah, and I think I want to hit this from a bunch of different angles, and I don't know what order, but to build on what you just said, like, for me, and I, this is just how I think about breath. Like, the reason why it resonates with me, and one of the first things that we did actually that time that I think we were in that Target grabbing a coffee and getting to know each other, but it turned into basically a session with you was just focus on where the breath was. I remember that very distinctly.
Yeah, and like, on the first call, and we also focused on where it was living in your body. That's exactly
right, where it was living in my body. And I'm that kind of person. I walk fast, talk fast, think fast, all those things. And so I can function very well, like, and I can perform without the breath ever leaving, like right here. And if you're watching this on the video version, I'm holding my hand basically an inch below my chin and like right at my chest line. And so one of the first things it was not even to like focus on the breath. It was literally just say, notice where it is. Right. And noticing where it is made me realize it wasn't as deep. And there's a time and a place, fight or flight, dopamine high, moving at 1,000 miles an hour. Like there is a place and time where that is exactly where it should be. And then there's a place and a time where that is not where it should be. And it could lead to burnout. And the more performance oriented a person tends to be, the more resilient and more they can take. Mm-hmm. And so like, we don't notice it because essentially we're so used to it. That
it's your threshold, right? If you're used to your threshold being high for
it's kind of like if you're idling, right? If you're idling it at 3,000 RPMs, or 4,000, like you don't realize most people never even get to that at full speed, but you're idling there. Well, then your version of where it is at 1,000 or 2,000 RPMs feels foreign to you, but it's also a completely new realm to enter with your intuition, with your cognition, with all of that.
I think also one thing I want to say with that is, and we can get into somatic work because I think that is a core of what I do, and I think it could support listeners. But I also want to throw out a spiritual quotient today. It's something I've been really playing with the last couple of years, and I think in the age of AI, it's going to become very valuable for people to develop their spiritual or intuitive quotient, because that's going to be able to allow you to use discernment in understanding where the edge is with AI for yourself, for your family, but also in your business. And one of the ways I believe you can increase your spiritual quotient or intuitive quotient is through connection to the body, not just through breath, but actual somatic guidance, like what we did in our session.
So what is that? Explain what somatic guidance is, because I don't actually remember. I know what we did, but I don't remember I wouldn't be able to define it for somebody.
So it's the physical experience of feelings and energy living in the body. So that's when we use somatic. So somatic guidance it's just a mapping system for measuring where things live in the body energetically.
I got
right?
you. So
like,
when you said notice where the breath is, that was a somatic map to say,
exercise,
oh, it's
correct.
in my upper chest, or it's down in my belly, or it's in my right neck, and I feel my trap. Like, you know, everybody has their different thing, right?
Yep. So it's like the body keeps the store, that very famous book, right? This is somatic work. Somatic work is understanding where things live in the body. So emotion lives in the body, but how we don't identify there's sadness in my elbow. We identify it through sensation. That's somatic audit. That's where we're understanding. Okay, burnout, great example. Burnout can look like tight chest. It can feel like a cardiac event, right? That's a big one that people on this call could probably understand. Tight, intense shoulders. Maybe your vision can even be affected, right? Because you're just on screens all day and your body's telling you stop, 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 and you're pushing past it. Your vision could even be blurred, right? Again, this isn't professional medical advice. I do need to say that. But the tingling, right? Not numbing, but tingling in the body when you're feeling very activated and you need to rest, but you override it. Like burnout is just sort of this event that happens. It's like right? Once you've been ignoring the body's cues that you're doing too much. And
so here's an interesting thing, and I'm going to give you this in real time, because again, I think a lot of people will be able to find themselves somewhere in this arc. So I want to put myself out as like the real time example to have you kind of unpack this a little bit more. So the other day, Saturday morning, which as we're recording this, what was that? 5 days ago, four days ago. I woke up. Normal Saturday morning, mostly family day. I obviously did whatever in the morning. And then at some point I just checked my phone. I leave it on do not disturb now for the most part. But I checked my phone and I had a couple minutes to myself and I went on X, which is a pretty typical thing. And I kind of did it intentionally. Like I didn't do it as a rote thing, but I was like, I'm going to check it now and just see if there's anything I want to bookmark to review in my kind of work mode time this weekend tomorrow, right? That was the thought that went through my head. So I did that. And I see this post, doesn't matter what it is. I see this post and it's about something that's happening that made 6 months of me kind of mentally trying to figure out where I'm going to be useful, how to be useful, how to help be a sense maker for other people in this, how to monetize that aggressively, but also thrive in it. Like I was in this conversation that just felt like going nowhere for 6 months. And I see this tweet or whatever it's called now, post on X. And I read it. And the minute I read it, it's like 6 months of mental questioning and effort and grinding and goes all into one line. And it's like a moment of clarity and it's simple and it's crystallized. And I'm like, and it's the kind of thing you do not want to have happen when you're about to have a day of not working and family, because it's the very thing that when it happens, you can't turn it off because it is 6 months of you looking for it. And then it goes, here I am. And so that's the context, because everyone's had a version of that where they're not supposed to be doing or thinking about a thing. And something happens in the shower or whatever, where you get that moment of aha. And then it's like, oh, great. So now you got to put that over here and pretend like you're interested in whatever the hell you had scheduled today. So that's that. So we're driving. We're going to a park or whatever we're doing with the twins, like the family. We're taking everybody. It's a beautiful day. So we're driving somewhere and I'm doing pretty well in my mind, right? I'm like doing pretty well. Like I'm like ready to just be dad mode and husband mode and whatever. And my wife says, where are you right now? And I'm like, I'm here. And
she's like, BS.
And then I'm like, because in my mind I was ish, but my eyes weren't, right? And she goes, you have that look like your eyes are glazed over, like you are not here. Can you put whatever that is aside? I don't want you to ignore it, but can you put whatever that is aside and just be here? And I'm like, I can. So, I did for a little while. And then there was a break 2 or 3 hours later. And again, I'm not saying this is like for judgment or whatever. I'm saying like, this is what I saw and I witnessed happen. I actually really, to my benefit, I really actually did put it aside. And when I say it was hard, like, you guys know what I'm talking about.
Excruciating.
It is excruciatingly hard because I've been grinding for something of this for 6 months to happen. And now it happens and I kind of can't act on it in that moment, right? It's not the day for that. It's not the time for that. But I was actually at peace with it because I'm like, well, I don't have to wonder if I'm like, in other words, there was this other side that actually enabled me to do the shutdown a little bit because I wasn't like in that spin cycle and burning all the sugars trying to figure out if I was going to find something, right? Like I finally found it. But now I'm in the go mode of like, oh my God, I find it. Like finally, like I got so much to do now. Like now I have a reason to go. Brrr. The one benefit of AI was it allowed me to realize the lift was going to be a lot lighter. The execution lift, right? So it's this weird dichotomy. And I'm saying this because I think a lot of people are dealing with this and maybe coming to you for this. The reason I was able to get peace of mind and actually tune back into like the non-work stuff was because I knew that my ability to execute was exponential and was not going to rely on other humans being there. And so if it was later tonight at midnight or at 6 p.m. or at 3 p.m. when they took a nap and my wife was doing something else that she wanted to do and I had 30 minutes, like I knew I could rapidly in micro sessions get to the terminal, type some things in, and then let it be, and then come back, and it would have done 10 hours worth of work for me. And so because I knew that I was going to be able to execute 50 hours worth of work in probably an hour of time, all I had to do was go, today, you're going to put in an hour of time. And tomorrow you have 3 hours scheduled. So then you'll be at you'll be good. And then coming into Monday morning, you got 4 days before you want to announce what you're doing on Thursday night. And so funny enough, I literally was able to calm myself down because of that dual reality. Funny third piece to that piece is, so Sunday night, what have I done? Architected the whole system, done whatever. And I spent less than 2 hours of time working on it over the weekend. The brand, the schemas, the metadata, like the entire thing. And so I come into Monday morning feeling less stressed than normal because I know I've got all the other client stuff. I've got all the other things, but then this new hair on my ass idea that I've been waiting 6 months to appear and crystallize finally comes in, and it solves all the problems I haven't been able to figure out how to solve otherwise. And now I've got essentially like the playbook and like 100 hours worth of work hitting the ground Monday morning, and I didn't have to tell anybody, include like no one knew. And so I was able to find a lot of peace in that. So that was the good side. Back to your thing, and then I'll shut up, the somatics. Monday, now I'm in work mode. And so I'm doing all the things that I have to do because I'm contracted to do them. I've already agreed, right? All the things that you have to do, client work, whatever it is, right? You have all these other things. So every window I get that's not that, I'm like, boom, I'm into this. And the high is real, right? And somewhere around, I don't know, remember when, 12:30 or 1 p.m., right? The intermittent fast is broken. I'm off calls. I've got a window, so I'm going to go eat. And I noticed, and it wasn't pain, right? And it wasn't scary, but I noticed that my like left arm, right? And my left chest and my left arm was just like, I felt like it was cracked out.
Mm. Like, was it tingling? It was like activated.
I don't want to, yeah, it was activated. It wasn't like, I don't want it to sound like it was a medical thing. I consciously went, is it a medical thing? In other words, like.
Logically, sure.
Yeah, like logically, I walked through the checklist of like, okay, check my, like I did all that, right? I checked
The left arm is your feminine side, and it's the arm of receptivity. So when you told me that, immediately I thought, oh, you're receiving, because I like to call what happened to you with that tweet or post a download. So you got an intuitive hit or download on a creation. You were the facilitator of the creation, but in order to execute the creation, you needed to receive information. So your body is showing you that there's an activation happening on the left side, and it's becoming a little overwhelming, not burnout, but that activation is literally, that's what I literally am getting as you're telling me
It
that.
was the opposite of burnout. And the reason why I say this, because I know what burnout feels like. I've had it too many times, right? Because I know what burnout feels like. And because I'm 50, I got a little concerned.
You're
right?
not 50.
I am 50. So because I'm 50, I got a little concerned and I went, oh my God, you know, just I breathe. I went into breath. Like I did not like, oh, I'm gonna go breathe now, meditate. I like really got into my body because I was making lunch, right? So it was like no big deal. I don't really need to eat. And I had that feeling like you took too many energy drinks or like, right? But it was very like localized, kind of like you said, to that left side. I didn't understand that part. So that's kind of an interesting insight. I kind of went, okay, is my meter running too hot? I really like everything's good. You're adrenalized right now. That's how I kind of framed it in my mind. You're adrenalized right now because of this unlock. You kind of need to, you got to pace yourself. Like, and it was just an intentional checking in of really, again, without me calling it somatic or whatever, it was just me checking in. Where is it? What does it feel like? What do I do about it? And how I oriented to it was like, okay, this is something I can control. And, you know, through work I've done with other people and through some of the stuff that, you know, you and I talked about in the green room, I recognize that I think that's the piece that we want to remind ourselves of, is that our nexus of control has always been only what we can do with ourselves. We cannot control anything external. And no matter how powerful we get, we can delude ourselves to think we have control over the external. But we never have. And then we logically go, yeah, I know that. But I can make them do what I want, or I can influence that, or I can do this, or I can change the government, or I can. And then we prove to ourselves that we're someone who can move mountains because we organize resources, we organize people, and we get everyone locked in on a vision. And then we expand our nexus of control into the real world. But then a hurricane hits, or something bad happens, or someone dies unexpectedly, and we are brought right back down to our humility and our knees and realize, nah, yeah, that was just all right. Like I call it God's reminder of like, hey, just so you know, right? Folks,
God's reminder of our humanness.
Yeah. And so I think part of this was just realizing, okay, a lot of people are going through this. More people are going to be going through it. Meaning, however many people are feeling and relate to exactly what I just said, or have their own version of it, or whatever, your version of it, that's fine. That is a microcosm of the 8 billion people that are about to feel it over the next 2 to 3 years. And so the value add of that was, okay, so I can focus on my nexus of control. How do I do that? And then I was like, that's when when I reached out to you and was like, listen, I need you to record a podcast. I would like to have you on because I want to do this conversation with Dionna because I think she would be the one who could bring the most light to it. You already did with the feminine side. So talk about that, the receiving, because that makes sense. Like I was almost receiving so much so fast, but it wasn't like overwhelm. It was the opposite of overwhelm. It was definitely a dopamine hit.
It's just, yeah, it's an activation of the feminine side. So there, you know, everybody carries the polarity of the masculine and feminine energy in them, right? That's everybody. Obviously you chose, you know, whatever your sex is, your biological sex, you're a man, so you're going to operate more in your masculine. And if you're a biological woman, you're going to operate more in your feminine. However, you still contain masculine energy. Masculine energy is directive, focused, structured, you know, it's the committed, focused energy. The feminine is receptive. She's in flow. She is intuitive, right? And so not to say you can't be, you know, either one. This isn't
right. We both have all of them. In some cases it's an undeveloped muscle, and others it's overdeveloped, and others
Correct.
It's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so in the body, so there's also emotional mapping of the body. That's very complex, but that is a thing. You can look it up. You just Google emotional map and it will literally show you, you know, what organs are, you know, hold what emotion, etc. But for the sake of this conversation, if we're talking about just the polarity of masculine and feminine, typically the right side is the masculine, the left side is the feminine. So for me, when you were talking, that made a lot of sense because you were receiving some sort of higher intelligence, as what I'll call it, or divine intelligence, for something that you were going to birth into the world. That's feminine. Birth, womb, fertility, that's all feminine. It's not just the literal creation of a baby, it can also be the energy of creating an idea, a business, anything like that. And that's the state you were in. So basically what was happening was you got this input in your body of like, hey, we're online, we're receiving, let's go.
Right. Interesting.
Right?
So it wasn't something to be alarmed by, but it did catch my attention because it felt like something could be wrong. Yep. Meaning more temporary, not like I'm going to have a heart attack, but it was like, okay, I wonder when that's going to stop. Or
do you need to stop it, or can you just bring awareness to it?
No, I didn't feel the need to stop it, but it crossed my mind, like, should I? Or like there was I can't remember all the thoughts, but again, it wasn't like, I didn't feel like the need to stop it, but it was so noticeable. Like, I wasn't shaking. You know what I mean? Like, I
want to bring awareness to something, because I think we should connect a couple of things. Number one of the things I noticed about you talking about the 6 months was, and I know this about you because I called it out in our session, is you have this need that sometimes need to be of purpose, need to create, need to produce results, need to execute, which is very masculine, and there's nothing wrong with it. But sometimes you have a tendency to go over. Right. So let's say 100 is healthy. You want to go 150. And I'm like, hey, let's pull it back. Right. Yep. Because if you're too much on the other side, right, if you're swinging all the way to the end of the pendulum, right, it can become destructive. It can be chaotic. Same thing with the feminine. If you're all the way over here and you do nothing, you're just in flow all the time and taking no action, that can be very destructive as well. So what I noticed was you were looping for 6 months. You were desperately trying to find the answer. You were in overdrive, which is like trying to control something you can't control, which you brought up earlier. And then at some point, what happened, even though you didn't say it yet, you surrendered and you let go.
Yeah, I'm glad. It was funny. As you were saying that, I was going, for 6 months, what I can say I was definitely doing for the last 6 months was I was trying to control myself enough to actually surrender, because that concept was so metaphorical, or like, it's
hard, it's not tangible.
In other words, like, it was something that if you would ask me, oh, you need to surrender, I would have given you the textbook definition of exactly how you do that, but I was not doing it, right?
Yeah, you weren't doing it.
And so about 6 months ago, I was in a place where I definitely was brought down to the only option, Chris, is surrender. And then from 6 months till Saturday, right, I was in the mode of, got it, surrender is the only way. How the hell do I do that? And so all the effort and all the grind was, what is my role? In other words, how do I apply this talent, this drive, this energy, this ambition, this,
it's primal,
this concern for my family? How do I harness all of this and surrender, right, at the same time? And so it wasn't a grind around the normal push, go 150. It was a grind of extra effort because I had to break my habit without abandoning the gifts. And I don't know how to do that, meaning, like, I think I'm getting better at it, but I didn't have any way of knowing how to do that, because that kind of duality of surrender and drive, like, that had never been.
It's the dance of the masculine and feminine. And that's what, when someone says balance, they're really saying yin and yang. Balance is the balance of masculine and feminine energy. It's the marriage of the two energies within you, right? And so you've been working on that, but you got to the point where you were literally on your knees, like, okay. And I don't know when that moment was in the last 7 days, but there was a moment where you sent a signal to the universe, to God, whatever you believe in. I know it happened. You know how I know it happened factually? Because then you got that download. Now, you wouldn't have received that had you not been ready to receive it, right? It would have taken more time.
That's the piece. I'll take you at your word for that, but that's the piece that I'm least clear on. And I don't know that it matters, right?
It doesn't matter. I don't think it does matter.
Yeah, I don't think it matters. Meaning, I could not tell you, and I don't even actually feel the need to know. And that's a new thing, right? And I think that's what's interesting is, like, there's a version of us, or there's a version of me for sure that would have, like, at some point gone, yeah, I need to know so that, somehow I can revisit it, or, like, I need to know everything, right? That's part of my strengths, part of my liabilities. I got to understand how things work, and I've always wanted to understand how I work. But this is a time where I can say, whatever that thing, I just call it serendipity. Like, I just call it, Like it just happened, and I didn't even think about it. I haven't thought about it in 5 days. Like I haven't tried to figure it out at all. I've just gone, okay, like let's go.
You've been in flow. You're like, I received this, I'm ready to create, let's go. And now you're, instead of just taking action to take action, you're taking aligned action on something that you actually believe in, which, as you know, will produce results that you probably don't even know yet, right? There's a limitlessness to it, because you're just following kind of direction. I call it like divine direction. But when you're just doing something with no direction, you know that you spin out, burn out, and then you're back at square one.
Well, and it's funny because one of the things that I definitely can say, part of that whole, okay, I'm going to really actually try on this surrender thing, and I don't want to pretend or let anybody think on this that I know what that means, or that I in any way think I know how to surrender. That'll be a work I spend the rest of my life trying to figure out, I think. But what I do know, and what I will say is unique about this experience, is that like there's been a lot of things that I know I have to do, and I would venture to say, you know, I want to do, right? Skills, learning how to, you know, do a command line interface and terminal, like things like that, right? These things that, you know, you kind of need to do to really get the most out of AI, or at least be sovereign and have a chance at owning your own intelligence or some piece of it, and not just being a slave to the frontier models moving forward. And all that stuff matters to me. So there's like this stuff where I go, well, I'm going to learn that. I need to learn that. And I have a reason. My why is big enough, right? I want to be able to teach at least my own kids how to do that. And I want to provide others. I don't want to just make everybody a slave to, you know, the 4 big frontier models, or 5. And yet all that didn't matter, right? Like it didn't happen. There were still things that I hadn't done. Like, perfect example, I had paid for the subscriptions. I had all the technology stack and things to go automate and build something. I had 3 or 4 ideas that were all worth doing, that could all get to revenue, that I could go execute. And none of them got beyond a scoping or an architecture doc. And none of them got me to where I was independent of needing to say to a friend who did have those skill sets or whatever, can you go put it through and code it for me, right? And then as of Saturday till today, yesterday, I literally broke through all of that overwhelm, or all of that inertia, or fear of not knowing how to, you know, make it through a bug fix if I couldn't figure it out. Like I broke through all that, and now literally launched end-to-end my own code deployment for the first time ever. And I say that because the unlock for me is the freedom of being able to move past my own self-imposed limitation on what I need to learn or want to learn. Like, and none of that would have happened, I don't think, had I not somehow been able to receive that at the truest sense and be what you said was aligned, because I have had all the reasons to do it before on paper.
Logically.
I've had all the accounts logged in. I have all the, like, there was nothing stopping me except doing it. And yet, and all the tools are there. So nothing's changed, right? Like,
well, no, you changed. That's what happened.
What I'm saying is nothing external changed.
Yeah.
But for some reason, there was an alignment, and the alignment ultimately came back to the one thing that I've been saying for 6 months, more than ever. I've said it on podcasts where I've been interviewed in the last 6 months too. Someone's like, well, what are you doing today? What gets you? And I said, you know, I don't, honestly, right now, I just want to be useful. And I don't know what that means. I just know I want to be useful, including launching this podcast, including using other things. It's like, I want to be useful. And that's been my surrender, right, to the universe, is I'm here. I got all this, whatever I got. What do you want me to do with it? And that's the surrender, is not what Chris wants to do. What do you want me to do with it? And what Chris wants is, Chris just wants to be useful. And so I think because of that alignment, whatever the thing was Saturday, right, doesn't matter, because it just created a clarity of a simple way forward to meet my needs and my kind of wants and desires, but to do it in a way that could also be useful. And that clarity of alignment then made me go, well, then I'm going to finally just code this thing myself and use AI to do it.
Let me ask you a question. I want to ask you a question. So do you think that you, over the last 7 days, 6 days, Do you think you're primarily operating from the mind and ego, or do you think you're primarily operating from your body's intelligence?
I don't know. I know what like I would love to say the right thing. I honestly don't know. I mean, I haven't thought about it.
There isn't a right thing, but the only reason why I asked that question is because
no, I'm saying the ego wants to say the right thing, right? The ego wants to say the right thing. But the reality is I don't care in a way that doesn't sound like apathetic, right? In other words, like I don't need.
Do you know why I'm asking you that though? Because I want you to notice something about yourself.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know why you're asking me, other than you're trying to get me to look at something I'm not looking at. I don't know which one it is. I think there's a hyper pragmatism to it that's still based on like I need to unlock something to get where I want to go for my family.
Sure.
So there's that. Then there's the kind of just way that I'm built, which is I need to be enlightenedly self-interested, right? That's not a word, but like I'm just not going to be able to stick with something if it's only benefiting me. But I'm not at that point anymore where I have this like I think altruism enlightened, or it's not, but it's always self-imposed, right? Like I am happy to be self-interested. I just want to be as enlightened in that self-interest as I can. So in my head, I definitely check those boxes, right? Like in my head, I'm going, okay, so this checks those boxes. You can go be greedy because you're not hurting the planet. You're not hurting humans. You're making it better. So it's not zero sum. Mm-hmm. And so I check that. That's definitely in the head. It satisfies the need in my heart, which is that I got to feel good about myself. And I couldn't find another way because I know I can sell stuff. I know I can, like, so when you get to a certain point where like I could choose to do anything and I could go make money, it's like, okay, great. And then with all the stuff, I started to worry about all the bad choices, all the unintended consequences at scale, because I don't have my arms around it. And none of us will. None of us will fully understand the impacts of AI. Even the people inventing it don't know what the next version is going to look like until it's out. Right. And they admit it. And so I kind of recognize that accepting our powerlessness over that and accepting our hierarchy as this thing is now going to prove to us all that we never were the most intelligent beings. We just happen to be the most intelligent physical beings that we were aware of, and then we sit at the top of the food chain because of it. But, if you do believe that there is a creator or whatever your orientation of that is, you recognize quite frankly that the Earth is a nothing burger inside of a galaxy that's enormous, right? So we can all zoom out. And anyway, I definitely was in my head a lot. I'm in my head now.
Well, I think the physical manifestation of the zone you were in, let's call it that for this conversation, the arm activation at the end wasn't, for me as an outsider, it was evidence that you were operating from your body in a more conscious way. You were in the moment, you're not thinking I'm in my body. That's not how it works. But on some level, you were, because you had surrendered, whatever your version of that is. Again, we don't have to get into semantics here. I can tell you based on what happened, because you could have done something per your point, but you didn't, right? You needed some sort of connection or merging of self in order to take that action and be in the body, be in divine consciousness or divine intelligence, to then take those aligned action steps that, yes, required mental capacity, but there was some activation happening somatically for you. We know that because that's where we started in the story. Now I'm circling it back for you.
So what is the takeaway from that for people? Like, in other words,
I think being intentional about how you're using AI. I think integrity. I think using it, like you said, for impact. Yes, there's self-interest because you're human. That's fine. But really, like, how am I intentionally using this technology to make the world a better place? Again, it's cliche, but true, or impact or usefulness, whatever words you want to use. And then when I'm using it from that place, right, like connecting to my body, like if I start to feel resistance to AI or to technology, your body will tell you. If I'm not using it in a way that's in alignment with my purpose or my usefulness, that's a red flag.
So here, I want to go the other direction, selfishly, but because I think this is also a big portion of the audience, maybe. I actually was thinking about it through the other lens. So when I brought up the example, I didn't know I was going to talk about that with you today, but it just kind of where we went, and I'm glad it did. when I brought up the example in the arm, the reason why I was bringing it up is because we started this off talking about, right, the health. We talked about other people's recordings about, the smartest people in the world right now are miserable or feeling hopeless. Why is that, right? Well, part of it is because we're all going through this learning curve, this adaptation curve of using a thing that we recognize is more powerful every single day, more complex in optionality every single day, meaning go to X and you'll find 15 new versions of open source software that you didn't know about the last 15 that you can go improve upon the last 30, and it's like, holy crap, right? And so I'm saying that because I think my first kind of intent for bringing that up was how do you manage and how do you stay aware of your potential to become addicted to the productivity? Because one of the things this last week has been very calm, but one of the things I was kind of self-aware of, call it over the last month and a half, very specifically since January 27th. And for those who've read some of the other posts or who haven't followed this, January 27th, I wrote a post called the 28th Day of the Singularity. And you didn't read this, I don't think, Dionna, but what it means is I said a penny doubled every 30 days, right? Doesn't sound interesting because we think in linear terms. And if you know that analogy, you know that where it gets really interesting and where it becomes very explosive is on the 28th day, because that's the day where it goes from 800,000 to 1.6 million. And then the 29th day is 3.2. And right. And so then it does that. And I think when we had the Molt book and the Moltbot moment on January 27th, which was a weekend, and most people weren't paying attention to it because they were worried about the NFL playoffs or whatever, but those who were didn't sleep. And if you go back through the archives of history, I think January 27th and that kind of inflection point will go down as a day that a lot of things changed forever. And since that time, whatever that's been now, 6 weeks, I've been very self-aware of the first time where I felt like the productivity, the performance, all that, it's like too much. It's not good. But it was like I vacillated, meaning nothing could be all bad, nothing could be all good. And it's Pandora's box, it's open, you can't change it. So it is what it is. Like you have to find a way to accept and then deal with this reality that now exists, because it's not going to go backwards. Right. And so that's been the last 6 weeks. And up until like 6 days ago, I think I wasn't at peace with any of it. I think I was really struggling with it.
You were in resistance to it.
Well, I think I was just confused. I think I was just like, and I think a lot of people are. I'm saying this, I've had conversations with, and it went through all the emotions, right? Like, wait, I started investing in AI related startup stuff exclusively like 3.5, 4 years ago. Like I've been in crypto and blockchain and whatever for a decade plus. Like I have all this pattern recognition. Plus I got 25 years of being an entrepreneur and being around markets and whatever. And I'm like, if I'm feeling this, what the hell is society going to look like? Because I'm not making myself special, but I went through that emotion, right? Where you go, if I'm feeling confused and scared, like how the hell can I lead anybody, whoever they are? I can't even lead myself through this right now. And I think that's a feeling that people are having.
Yeah.
And what I'm hoping to say is it doesn't last, because I'm not saying I'm through it. I'm not saying it won't return in different form. I'm saying without me planning it, right? Saturday became kind of a moment of, like you called it, reception. Became a moment of finding a place where, without me having to worry about what I can't control, I became very clear and aligned around something that I could control, that I think could be net positive.
Yeah.
And it didn't change my worries or my fears or my questions or my concerns or any of that stuff. It just showed me that we live in a time where if we can kind of get through those things, the ability to now execute is the positive, meaning we can solve the problem because we don't need to go get 1,000 people hired and then train them to do it. before we move an MVP to market or before we move that situation into scale. Like, the bad news is bad things can spread fast. The good news is so can solutions.
Yep.
But it all starts with our ability to tap into a piece of us that we have, that's dormant and that is uniquely, in my opinion, human.
Well, what the words that are coming to mind are internal governance, sovereignty, internal direction. Those are the words that were coming to mind as you were talking. And I think now, because I'm someone who is in self-development, this is my wheelhouse. I mean, I'm all about people understanding who they are on the most intimate level possible. And there couldn't be a better time to do that work than now because
100%.
of what's happening with AI. That is actually currency now in a really profound way. And we're going to see how that compounds over time as AI evolves. But that's something AI can't touch. Like I say this all the time, I'm a single mom. I've had a lot of hardships. I was like, well, one thing no one can take away from me is my understanding of self, my intuition, my advanced spiritual gifts. No one can take those from me, right? My sovereignty, my ability to self-regulate. So this is really a time, again, not to like go on this cliche high horse again of mindfulness. It's not just breath in a superficial way. It's like, who are you? And if you don't know who you are now, this is the time to start figuring it out. It really is. Because if not, as you said, you will get lost in productivity. You will get lost in trying to understand the next thing happening and get ahead of it. And you're going to get lost by it. And that's kind of that's the dark shadow side of this technology. But sovereignty within oneself, your ability to govern yourself and understand pattern recognition within yourself is your greatest asset right now. And then teaching others how to do that as well.
I think, and I think I already know the answer to this, but I want to ask, there's a lot of concern or effort, even funding technical ways for people to now converse with AI. You mentioned earlier, you felt your own pull to go have a thought partner conversation with Claude, but you recognize, well, is that like a rote response or is that an intentional one? And then you decided in that instance, it wasn't intentional. So you didn't do it. And then you went and did a walk and
I meditated literally because I was like, this
right.
is not.
So I think,
Yeah.
is the answer that like, look, one of the things that humans don't have to worry about is that we may lean on these technical crutches that also bring us into alerts and reminders and whatever, like the quantified self movement, which I always laughed at. Like, I don't want to watch. I don't need it, right? Like, I don't want something that's going to do my heart rate. Like, I don't care. Like, I mean, that's me. I'm not making a judgment for anybody who has, but I'm
the same way. I'm the same way.
But I think, that's fine because those are just consumer things and it is what it is. You have your relationship to data, whatever you think that is. This is different though, meaning like now what I heard you just say was, I almost think you're saying, look, yeah, those tools are going to be there, but they're just more of the same problem. Like I don't want to say it's going to be a backlash. I think people are looking for, and I think we'll discover more about being human than we ever have because of this amazing technology.
I agree.
I don't think the technology is going to break humanity. I think it's going to reveal it.
And I also believe we learn through contrast. That's how humans learn. You learn about what you want by having something that you don't want. You learn about what technology is and its power by by it showing up and then realizing, oh, actually what I want is human connection. I'm really glad it's here because now people can take an honest look at themselves in the mirror and decide what humanness means to them.
Yeah.
It couldn't be a greater time for us to become conscious of what we're doing individually and collectively. That's what I believe, that we're at a choice point. That's what I think it's revealing collectively.
Yeah. And I think you're right in the sense of like, it moves us from a nice to have or like a signal of virtue, right? Look at me, I'm conscious, or look at me, I meditate, or look at me. Like it goes away from kind of a looking good and it gets really down to the thing that always moves humans, which is survival necessity. Like we will be forced, if we're not already there, every single human is going to be thrust into a survival dynamic we haven't felt in 150 years because we haven't had to. But 150 years ago, like you wake up, you didn't know if everybody in your family was going to make it to dinner that night because they might get eaten by an animal, they might get shot by a thug, they might, they might die on the Wild West Trail to go find prosperity. Like that was 150 years ago. It wasn't 1,000 years ago. It wasn't 2,000 years ago. We haven't been put to a place where we have to worry about where our food, our water, our sex, or anything comes from like any of our needs have not had an issue being met for decades, right? And yet now we're going to be thrust back into survival, and we're going to have to choose based on that. And that's going to actually be a good thing, because we still have all the conveniences, and there's this barbell now of like productivity over here at scale with a lot of autonomy potentially, and then a forced mandate to figure out what a human being is supposed to be, because it's only unique to us and never will be knocked off.
That's right.
And everything in the middle is going to kind of get evaporated, and that'll be the struggle, right? That'll be that internal head and heart struggle, I guess, that we go through collectively and as individuals. Is that what you're saying? Like,
yeah, AI is forcing us to recalibrate, and I want almost, the words that are coming to mind is merge into humanness, right? That's what it's forcing us to look at. And I love the mind heart, because that's exactly what it is. AI doesn't necessarily have a heart. We do. We have consciousness, we have intuition that is, you cannot replicate, right? So it's forcing us to understand what that is for us individually, how we connect with other humans, and then what choices we're going to make together. That's what I believe it's doing.
so I'm sure you're in a process of figuring this out, but like, how does one with your mission, talents, abilities capitalize on this opportunity in a way that serves a broader set of humanity, and yet, and leverages the, you know, the things that AI gives you to be able to execute, but also is like analog, like is very connected at that spiritual level? Like, have you thought about that? What challenges do you think people that are doing the work like you're doing face getting to a market that the supply and demand is going to be astronomical? Like, I agree with you. I think it's the best time in the world to be doing what you do, because
I'm really excited, actually.
you know,
Look, it's my time. I was a late bloomer, but now I'm like, I see the opportunity. I'm like, let's go. Well, first and foremost, the answer is that I need to continue to stay in myself, in my body. And that is number one, no matter what, more now than ever. Number two, I use the technology to scale my spiritual IP, right? And also the struggle is understanding that AI will never be able to fully do that. And that's where I become a real asset to, I think, society and my specific demographic and audience. But again, I think it really comes down to itself. For me, it's going to be about identity. And then how do I take this tool and expand that identity so that I can support people, make an impact, like you said, be useful. And then how do I do that with others? So that's like my 3-prong approach. That's how I'm looking at it. Again, like you said, I don't really have the answers, but this is what I'm doing and practicing in real time. And I'm kind of just like creating my own internal and external SOPs around my relationship with AI in real time, and constantly adjusting them, depending on what's happening with the technology.
yeah. So as you figure out the playbooks that work for you, you'll make those available to other people, which is one way that, you know, you can both have a business that scales, but also stay within yourself.
Correct.
I think, I don't know, I would imagine that in real life interactions, I mean, I'm betting on this in my own way. I think they just hit an all-time high. I think human beings are social creatures, no matter how introverted we are. And we don't want to be in a mass produced kind of impersonal experience. But there will be some need to figure out how to deliver personalized impacts in large scale, in real life environments. And I think community, however you want to, I think communities of common interest will start to find ways, whether it's running clubs, whether it's freaking, I don't know, right? But there will be gatherings in ways that a whole generation of society today, Y and Z specifically, don't really have experience with, because they grew up natively digital.
Yep.
But those of us who are older and can kind of remember back to a pre-digital world realize, like, yeah, there was something just rad about that, right? Like, and we'll go into a new business model that highlights that. And I think you'll be kind of the examples that lead us there. So where do people get in touch with you, and what's the best way to connect with you? We'll put it all in the show notes, but I'll give you a plug, and then thank you for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me. This was a very enlightening conversation, and I trust that it will support your audience in the way it needs to. My website, which is just my name, DionnaChambers.com. You can fill out a contact form. There's questions there to sort of, understand fit. And then I'm really active on Threads. That's kind of my version of Substack currently. And then, of course, you can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure that they do. And thank you for being on the Atomic Level. It was awesome again to, in real time, tap into some of your unique genius. So thank you so much on behalf of everybody.